I think that is very good. I think it's a good example for other regulators. They're not other regulators in the audience, but to appoint someone that has a good understanding of the innovation developments, use cases for other markets, and then have a dialogue with the Insurtech and the insurance companies. Because the traditional view is that the insurance companies are to develop and innovate, so you need Insurtech companies that have better ideas and then test it out. And I think the video does always have a discussion with the regulators that the fintech and Egypt and technology is responsible for its own regulations and will be regulated by the regulator. So it's a dialogue. So I really like these examples, and maybe put still for a little bit of time. Otherwise, I'll steal a little bit of time. So basically, so if you listen to this, how can regulators embrace the reason why I ask is, for instance, in GCC, and Saudi, we Qatar, all of us have similar type of regulations. Something like passporting regulation, something that can set something you discuss with your customer.
Yes, actually, I feel we as being in the GCC, it's like a similar culture, similar economy. Maybe if we have unified rules and regulation that will enable a company being in Bahrain to be authorized as a GCC company, where they can develop and design the products to fit the GCC instead of fitting it in one country. I mean, this will help Insurtech and insurance companies to reduce the duplication, use the resources on a better scale, on a GCC level, have the customer, a diversified customer pool with different background, looking for different kind of policies and procedures, so policies to suit their needs. So I think to have that unified regulator, unified rules and regulation would be beneficial to achieve that. Another idea could be we have local regulatory sandbox working in isolation of other countries. Why don't we have the GCC regulatory sandbox where all brains come from across GCC, think as a GCC product and try to design and develop these in order to be sold across the piece with, ability to have a license that could allow them to sell. I mean, we could also benefit from the European Union approach in that matter, and it could be beneficial, especially for the GCC with all the harmony we have in terms of culture, people's background, and economy.
I think it's a very good suggestion. So then the question is, will that actually work? Are you all like this? Yes. The word.
I think it is absolutely essential. I think it's a challenge regulators have been facing for a very long time. The world is a global marketplace, and this concept of national-only regulation and registration authorization is frankly archaic. We need to work on a more broadly recognized passporting approach across all industries. And I find it particularly fascinating for insurance is one of the basic premises of insurance is risk diversification. It applies equally in banking as well, but I think it's more pertinent in this case for insurance. If you can allow for mutual recognition through a passporting arrangement, you actually should end up with businesses that are safer. Can it work in practice? Well, I'll make one snide comment. I can't get away with a day without making a snide comment. The biggest first question will be, who's going to host which city in the GCC? And that's probably where the conversation will end.
Yeah, so it's there is a long way to go. So even if you look at UAE, where it's statistic marketing show, but they have too many regulators in the country itself, isn't it? Abu Dhabi and Dubai, that's what but maybe Morocco has a solution to have. So how do you, as a regulator, think you can help Insurtech companies be successful in other countries? And I think of France, for instance, France, Algeria, neighbors.
With Algeria, it's going to be complicated for now. Maybe other countries. Actually, what we've already done, we're doing right now is we are participating in African programs like the BIMA Lab that is supported by FSD Africa, where we pushed our Insurtechs to participate, and we also it's also an opportunity for us as a regulator to talk with other regulators, African regulators, and learn from their experience and try to unify what we are doing and to have the same approach, the same vision for the Insurtech. So this is what we're doing. It's a start, but of course, we unify our approach, it's much better for our Insurtech because they are going to scale much easier, and the costs also of scaling will be optimized. It's something that is still at the beginning, but it's probably a focus that something that we need to focus on in later. Yeah.
Thank you. I think those initiatives are very promising. And the fact that regulators already think like this, I think is promising. A last question, basically, to the regulators and to you as advisor. What would you advise Insurtech when they deal with the regulator? I'll give you an example. Some of these Insurtech come to us and says, what do we need to do? Because the insurance company says, well, you guys are the technology provider. You can give us a solution. We say, you set your technology provider. Then insurance company can take its own responsibility. So, based on your practice, what would you advise the Insurtech firms in the room if they come across regulatory?
To appoint us, Braxtone. So, whoever, somebody need to appoint us. So I think, we need to bridge the gap, Henk, between the insurance and insurance understanding, the technology and the advancement. Every single day there is something new, and the regulators and their high council. So we need to bridge the gap. We need to bring all the understanding together. But if everybody's thinking from their own perspective, it will be hard to communicate and find a common ground. So somebody to mediate and to understand the laws, understand the regulation, and understand the technology as well, can bring all the thoughts together and come up with the internal controls that will fit, that will, answer the regulatory concerns and risks. At the same time, will help develop the product that is, consumer centric, protects customer, and meets all the expectation from the regulator, as well as to work along in order to bring all parties together and to involve the regulators as early as possible in the stage and make them understand the ABC of what they are trying to implement. Because no matter how much the regulators are technology driven, there are still some areas that it's blind spot to them. They need to understand it. And who is better from the Insurtech companies to bring those understanding, conduct some educational session with the regulators in order to get them involved, understand the product from the early beginning, and realize if there is any risk from the beginning and overcome those. So whenever the regulators feel better or confidence in this product, it will be easier to regulate. It will be easier to have an oversight, and it will also lessen the burden on the regular inspection and on-site visit that they need to conduct because they are unsure what they are doing in terms of insurance technology. So I think this could be
I think that's great advice. Probably the Insurtech firms cannot afford to pay you but maybe the insurance firms, because the Insurtech companies solve a certain problem of what leakage. So make a sort of program that bridges, prepare the Insurtech firm. So it can be your advice to Insurtech firms when they deal with you.
Have a meeting with me. Yeah, just come to the Innovation and Insurtech unit at the regulator. So our work is to help them build their regulatory roadmap. They have visibility on what they need to comply with regulations. Sometimes they don't need anything, actually. You're a technology provider. They just need to find local partners, and that's all. Sometimes they need to be a broker, so we help them to know what are the conditions to be broker, etc. Sometimes they need to be full stack company, so we help them. So it's the first thing they need to do. But actually, our doors are open really for all insurtechs that want to settle in Morocco, and but I have one advice is to find local partners. It's just, I think it's
That's
for this condition. Yeah, it is the hardest thing.
So the road towards, delivery of your product with a partner like Insurtech takes time. It's probably costly as well. So Ewald, I know in Qatar we are blessed with more regulators, and
lucky people.
The central bank has a clear fintech strategy and has now also put Insurtech as a regulated category. So any views on this when you give an advice to Insurtech firms?
Well, I think our answer is very easy. We tell them to talk to you. No, I think what's been said has, I think, covered it. I would try and summarize it as follows and say, be clear in your own mind whether you are a technology provider, which probably means you don't need to be regulated. Lucky you. If you are going to be the interface directly to the product or service user, then you're entering the regulated space. That becomes difficult. Be clear on what you are doing. Talk honestly to the QFCA first. Then you can also talk to us and we can decide where you fit. Because you don't want to be caught in the wrong space. So just clarify your thinking. And I think that's where I often see the biggest issues. People are not exactly sure, and it's really not that complicated. Regulated activities are very clearly spelled out. Are you doing this, or are you only helping somebody else do it?